Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of the Greatest Profession Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Asciutto. This is a Meanderings episode on Katherine Fogelberg's episode, Weird Complicated Parasites. I've recently been thinking a lot about academia, education. So I just kind of wanted to share a couple of those thoughts with you. Especially if you're somebody who is thinking about going to vet school. I've been thinking a lot about how much of my life I guess before 30 was dictated by admissions. Not all of it. I mean, obviously, I had my own experiences outside of academia, and that's part of my problem. But it's just like when you think about your high school, even, I mean, if you went to high school sort of similar-ish to mine, there was at least a group of individuals who, as soon as they got into ninth grade, they're like, well, we got to start taking AP classes. I got to start getting my GPA up in order for me to be competitive enough to go to this undergrad institution. And then once you get into your undergrad institution, I got to keep my GPA up. I got to do all this so that I can get into this graduate program. And it's like that over and over and over again. And so much of what you're trying to do, you're trying to adjust your life in such a way so that you can be admitted to this school, so that you can one day get this degree that you're thinking about. And it's crazy. I remember, it's like, oh, well, you have to do this research in this lab. Like, yeah, I mean, I had to be in the clinic and get all these clinical hours because I wanted to go and be a competitive vet school candidate. And it's wild to me how much of your life becomes sucked in to that process. You don't take a dance class because you want to take a dance class. You take you can get on dance team so that you can be someone with an interesting background who was on dance team and also wanted to be a veterinarian. It becomes strategic in that way. And it's like, you look back on that part of your life and you're like, oh, yeah. I remember that. But man, I haven't thought about that as a dictator for life in a long time. After graduating vet school, everything else sort of ended up being like, I have to start deciding what to do with my life because I want to do it with my life. And you forget that something was dictating what you chose early, and now you have to make your own decisions. And that's actually a hard transition to make. So it's just something that I've been reflecting on is like, gosh, I just forgot how much of my life was actually led by a pursuit towards academia or to like an academic pursuit of some way. So much of my life was dictated in those terms, which left me kind of unprepared to start making decisions on my own for my own life in the absence of a, final academic goal. But what also is interesting is how much of that was presumption on my part. I assumed that the path towards grad school was having research and having this GPA and having these specific experiences and then like a wild card thing. I just assumed that that's what they were, maybe looking for. But I don't know where I got that information, except that it was handed down by other people who probably also didn't have any idea of what that information was. I remember, much later when we were going into vet school, you'd look on like the Student Doctor Network and it's a lot of people offering advice, which is fantastic. But how do they know? Where are they getting the information? And this becomes this perpetual thing of like, hey, we know how to get you into this, corner of the world. We know how to get you into this profession. Hey, kid, come here. Come to the alley. In this part of my coat, I got a few Rolex watches. And then in this part, I got admission standards. So, it just becomes clear to me that we end up relying on a lot of advice from individuals along the way who maybe don't have the best information. I'm sure that these people as I do as well, where they've had advisors tell them you're never getting into vet school, which, by the way, come on. What advisor should ever advise you to stop dreaming? Makes me hot. How about, and this is how you get in. Anyway, how many people, it's like these advisors who are supposed to have all the answers, they don't necessarily have all the answers. And professors don't have the answers. And people who are on the admissions committee, they don't have all the answers. And it's like, we live so much by these standards that come from who knows where, and you start adjusting your life accordingly. I just feel like that's such a, it's not a waste of a life, but it's like, I just feel like it loses an opportunity to live in another way. Of course, it's probably a good idea to have a decent GPA if you want to get into an academic program. Seems logical, but we don't know what that number is. And so to, take away from some of your life experiences so that, those life experiences that make you a whole human being, who give you joy and other perspective, if you're going to take away that stuff just so you can get a 3.9 instead of a 3.8, I don't know. I mean, I don't have the answers. I'm just another person saying things that I think are true. But to me, that seems like a waste of a wasted opportunity in your life. It kind of gets to something that Dean Fogelberg and I talked about, which is that, it's better to have some of these well-rounded individuals sometimes that may have a lower GPA because they were out pursuing other things in their lives than it is to have like this really high GPA. There's a voodoo magic in admissions. We don't know what's going on. It's a crazy cauldron, and it's a combination of things: academics, test scores, experience, outside experiences, personal statements, letters of reference, whatever. It is some mix of all of these things, but we don't know how exactly they equal admissions. And admissions in one program one year may look very different from admissions at that same program in the following year, or admissions into another program that same year. There's a variability to it. So I think that it's like, yes, these things, there is a mix of these things, but we don't know enough in order for us to use that information and apply it strategically. So I would argue, perhaps, just live your life. I mean, yes, if you're trying to get into an academic program, you have to be able to show that you can succeed academically. If you hate school and you're not very good at it, the fact is, like, you're probably not going to get in. And because veterinarians are lifelong learners, maybe it's not the profession for you. It's like you have to be able to succeed in this academic environment. Full stop. It is what it is. But whether that looks like a 3.4 or a 3.9, you don't know. So you may as well fill your life with other experiences, things that make you whole. Because you know what? You're going to find out a lot more about the things that you love in this life. You're going to find out about other things you might be able to do that are not attending vet school, if that's, if it doesn't work out for you. But it's also going to inform how you survive vet school when you do get in, and then how you're going to practice and the person you're going to be on the other side. So I would say that putting that effort in to those other things and starting to make those decisions early on about yourself and your life is probably a good idea, because it's really difficult at 30 to try to figure out who you are, because you spent your entire teens and 20s following some guideline or some magic map to become a veterinarian. And it also ties into this other idea of, do not tie your self-worth into admissions. If you didn't get admitted somewhere, it does not mean that you as a human being are not worthy. When we spend so much time crafting an identity out of our academic experiences, when you don't get in, it feels like you as a human being are wrong, that you don't have value. But that's not true. You entered this weird thing, which is admissions to these programs. Admission, it's voodoo magic. We don't know what the hell is going on. You're going to miss out on a lot of very well qualified individuals, no matter what. So if you don't get in somewhere, don't take that on as another piece of information about your identity. Take it as information of, hey, you didn't get in. Because the fact is like, when I applied to the PhD programs and I didn't get in, a big piece of me thought, that means that I as a person am not worthy to be in a PhD program, at least not in these top ones that I applied to. So I was offered an opportunity, or kind of offered an opportunity in a research lab. I'm like, cool, I'll spend the year doing research. I'll reapply next year. everything is going to kind of make sense at that point, my GPA, my research experience, and all of that. And then I'll reapply and I'll show them. And then when the economy tanked and I wasn't able to do that position because it lost funding, I took that as like a sign that, you know what, I guess I'm not meant to be doing this work. I let all of that, me not getting in, me suffering secondary to a collapsed economy, which I had nothing to do with, I let those things inform what I would end up doing as opposed to the dream that this kid had, me as a kid. I wanted to do neurology. I wanted to do neuroscience. I loved that stuff. I think a lot of my decision to stop pursuing neurology was because I kept not getting accepted. And I thought that that somehow reflected on me as a human being. Maybe I just wasn't of the caliber of individual. Maybe I didn't have the brain to be able to do that stuff. And they knew, these admissions committees knew more about me than I knew about myself. Or, more accurately, maybe they confirmed something that I believed about myself. But I'm glad that I ended up where I ended up. But a lot of it was because I decided to do things that I enjoyed doing, and I made decisions sort of accordingly. So I guess this is a message for, people who are definitely not listening to this podcast, being teenagers, early 20-year-olds. Don't create an identity compiled together from little pieces of what may make you academically successful. Compile an identity based off of the things that your heart is telling you about yourself. And some of that will probably be academic rigor. I mean, again, if you're the type of person who wants to truly be a medical professional, then you're the type of person who is going to want to study, who's going to want to learn this information, because that's going to be your life. Don't cobble together an entire identity based off of this singular pursuit. Be you, work hard, and go where that leads you. Maybe I'm discussing this on this platform because many of us are in the position to be offering advice to others. People come up to us, high school students, pre-vets, whatever. They're like, man, I really want to be a veterinarian. Give me some advice about how to get in. And it's like, yeah, we can absolutely give them the things that we believe are true, right? Well, you got to make sure that you study, get your hours in, make sure you get some good letters of recommendation, do some research. If you don't get in, do a master's program, really bump up that GPA. Sure. But I think that we are also in that position to perhaps offer them a little bit of wisdom as well, things that we've learned on our journey and what that looks like to us. And in my opinion, that's pay attention to all of you. If you craft an identity out of, I am a person who goes to school so that I can achieve a school thing, it's going to be very difficult to exist in the world after that school thing is over. So let's figure out a way to support these people. Let's support their journeys into the profession, but then let's support them when they're here as well. I think that's find the thing that grounds you. Find the thing that makes you sane and keep doing that and don't let it go. Find out who you are. The only way you're ever going to know is by putting yourself in situations that require you to chisel out your own identity. Or you can just walk away and be like, don't ask me. It's a lot. I'm not your father. Get out of here. All that's to say that if you're thinking about a path or a trajectory to get you into a professional program, specifically vet school, I would just pause for a moment and make sure that you are also paying attention to what it is that you want as a human being. You may have to sacrifice some things, of course, in the pursuit. I mean, that's what hard work is. But what I don't want you to do is sacrifice huge pieces of who you are so that you can start doing things that you think look better on paper. And again, maybe along the way you find that there's other things that you love. And best case scenario, which is also worst case scenario, you never get into vet school but you've lived an entire life that you can be proud of and that you enjoyed and you had rich experiences. Let us all be lucky enough to have that terrible luck. So, but anyway, those are just my thoughts. Thanks for being patient with this episode. I know it's late. There'll be another episode coming out shortly, and then we should be right back on schedule with everything. Thank you again for listening and for sharing. And please like, follow, subscribe, etc. I'm now on TikTok. I just posted some things on TikTok, and I can't say it with a straight face. So that's something. Places that we never thought our lives would go. But really, I thank you guys for being out there and listening and sharing and all that you have done. Without you, of course, this would not exist. So that's it. Have a wonderful whatever day it is, wherever you are in your life, wherever you are in the world when you listen to this. And until next time, bye, guys.